All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It's Tuesday, right? Tuesday, the 9th day of September, and I'm not seeing my video going out there, but it should. It should be. It is on YouTube. Yeah, Zohran could catch Cuomo, but for some reason I'm not seeing it on the Facebook feed. It's kind of weird. I don't know what that's about, but there may be some issue with Facebook. 240-242-5646 if you want to join me, and I will. I'll post this on Facebook at the end of the program. So those who are looking for me there, sorry, it's whatever reason. Sure, there must be a problem with the connection there. So we're on, like I said, YouTube. Okay, Zohran is always a popular topic on Halitics, and a new poll was released by the New York Times today, their Siena poll, and it shows Zohran with the biggest lead he's had since the race, entered the current phase, well, that he's ever had, because when it was the primary situation season, he was, I think, behind in every poll up until the last poll before the primary was held in June. Zohran was behind, and then he, of course, won big in the primary. And since then, he has been somewhere in the 15 to 20 point range ahead of Cuomo in the 4 or 5 person race. It's now a 4-person race. It had been 5 with Jim Walden running, I think, as the Libertarian. He's not running. Now the 4 are Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, former governor, corrupt governor, disgraced governor of the state of New York. Obviously, Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, and then Curtis Sliwa, the former Guardian Angel leader, who is the Republican candidate, and then another independent, the disgraced current mayor of the city of New York, a former police, officer, Eric Adams. He was not the commissioner of the police department, but he had he was a captain or some other white shirt in the force. He is the current mayor. So in the 4-person race, Mamdani holds the biggest lead I think the Times has found, over 20 points. But when you take out Sliwa and Adams just competing, the two, front runner, obviously Mamdani, and then number 2, Cuomo, the lead narrows significantly. And with one cohort of voters, if you decide you're going to look at all registered voters, according to the New York Times, Cuomo has a lead. So there's worry there if you, as I do, want Mamdani to win, and if, as I do, you really don't want Cuomo to win or Adams, then yeah, there's reason to be concerned. We'll get into that. But as we always do on Halitics, we're going to center the victims of American empire, the victims of our closest ally, Israel, the Jewish state, I want to call it. And we'll get into whether that's appropriate. Should I call it the Jewish state? If you have thoughts on that, would love to hear those as well. You can certainly post them on YouTube or call, like I said, 240-242-5646. The situation is so horrific, so horrible in Gaza. It always breaks my heart. The imagery from Anadolu Ajansi today was particularly gruesome. It's just so horrible. A starving person. I don't know if it was a child. You can't tell. It's a skeleton. Looks like the survivors, some of the pictures of the survivors of Auschwitz and the other death camps during the Nazi era. Also, the dead, not just the survivors, but the dead who were piled up in pits after they had been systematically starved to death. So that's what we're seeing right now. That is our world today. The official count now over 64,600, 6 more dying of starvation. It's hard to imagine anything more awful. And of course, we're supporting that. 140 children among victims who died from hunger. There's really no even argument. The Zion Nazis will say, well, like I posted, I'll give you an example. I posted that there were hundreds of thousands, over 100,000 or 100,000 dead and immediately was mocked for that. Oh, you don't even know what you're talking about. The official count is only 64,000. So that would be an okay number, right? As though that would be all right. But in fact, we do know that it's far higher, that the health ministry has consistently understated. They've been very, very conservative in their numbers, and people who die from clearly Israel-related causes are not often included in the death count. And then many are simply, we don't know where they are. Their bodies haven't yet been found. So the number now, 64,605, and that includes victims of starvation, 83 more bodies brought to the hospitals in the past 24 hours, and many injuries as well. We don't usually talk about the injuries, but it's, obviously their lives can be ruined too, or very significantly negatively impacted depending on the nature of the injury, how permanent it is, and the like. Israel has created a situation where it can say to itself, now we have to kill these people, because if we let them survive, they're going to hate us. They're going to want to kill us. That's certainly what they can tell themselves. And I guess from their bizarre, morbid world viewpoint, that makes it okay somehow. Not in my book, not where I sit, but for Israel, at least, apparently it does. All right, 240-242-5646 if you want to join me. If you have a comment on this, would love to hear from you. Giving you the number in our little square here. I already mentioned 64,605. Gazans killed, including 83 Palestinians, between yesterday and today. And now Trump's milestone is over 12,000 Gazans killed. And we give that number in women and children is over 6,000. So I can't really, again, it's just heartbreaking. It destroys you when you think about it. If you care, if you have humanity. And I think, some people, to maintain their humanity, can't acknowledge it. They have to be in denial. Perhaps they're Jewish, or they've supported Israel. They believed in Israel. They have guilt, perhaps, over the Holocaust in the 20th century, feeling, well, Christians did this to Jews. Jews can't be that evil. They get a pass or something of that nature. No, you don't get any passes. You have to do what's moral. You have to do what's right. You can't do the most evil thing in the world. There's nothing that could possibly justify that. Nothing that could justify wiping another group of people off the planet. And, it's just that simple. I don't know why it's so hard to get folks to they do understand it. That's why they're in denial. That's why they're saying, no, it didn't happen. It's not really true. In Montgomery County, Maryland, where I live, there are a lot of affluent Jewish people. There are a lot of pro-Israel affluent people. And they have pressure. They continue to pressure county council here, the executive, to support Israel, to support funding the Maryland Israel Development Center. Two of the most, I think, egregious politicians when it comes to this are Evan Glass, who is a Montgomery County Council member, and Andrew Friedson, who is also a Montgomery County Council member. They are both running for county executive to replace Mark Elrich, who I have voted for, I have supported in the past, but who sadly supports the Maryland Israeli Development Center as well. Evan, I by the way, had a long and rather, a confrontation, shall we say, with Andrew Friedson over the weekend. I was at the Tacoma Park Folk Festival, and I really went after him. I made the point to him that Israel is responsible for whatever surge, if there is any surge in anti-Semitism, we should put the blame on Israel. that their actions are so awful, and they tie themselves so tightly to the Jewish religion that it is more than understandable that many folks have become anti-Semitic, if they have. I mean, I don't even know that this has happened, but to the extent that it has, because some people say, well, those Jews are violent people. Those Jews are murderous people. Look at Israel. Look at that flag. Look at that star in the middle of their flag. I can understand why people would feel that way. That's human nature. You see a group of people who are doing really bad things, and they have a specific characteristic, they have a specific identifier, a marker that might be different than your own. They're Jewish, you're not. Maybe even worse, the people who are doing the really bad things are mostly or almost all Jewish, and they're doing harm to people who are like me. If I'm a Muslim, yes, I'm going to say, it's perfectly natural to attribute the cruelty, the viciousness of the people who are committing the crime. This is mob violence, right? You read I hear all the time people talking about white men, white people, privileged white people, as though there's some sort of trait of brutality, violence, selfishness that is unique to white people. And I understand why someone might say that. Person of color, they've been, they're less privileged, they're disadvantaged in certain ways. They see people with more than they have, a lot more in some cases, obscenely large amounts of wealth concentrated in very few white hands. Yes, I can understand why they would be angry and attribute their poor circumstances or their less advantaged circumstances to the bad characteristics of white people. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think that makes for provides us with solutions to the problems of inequality, of poverty. I don't think attributing a particular individual or a particular group's bad behavior to some innate characteristic, I don't think that helps us solve the problem, but I understand why we do it. Evan Glass notes, I am proud to share some exciting news. Today I filed for Montgomery County Executive. I'm running because everything we care about is under attack. So a very, somewhat grandiose statement there by Council Member Glass. And there were a number of comments from folks who said, hey, why are you supporting the Maryland Israel Development Center? That's what we care about, is that the United States, that our state, Maryland, and our county, Montgomery, not be part of a genocide, not support a genocide, not have companies in our county doing business that are helping wipe the Palestinian people off the face of the earth. And we do. We have software companies that operate in Montgomery County with support from Montgomery County taxpayers that are helping the Israeli military kill Palestinians with software and in other ways. This has been documented. And the response from the Montgomery County Council and from the executive's office when this has been pointed out to them has been crickets. Well, we're going to keep doing it. It's good for us. It's good for business. Okay. Well, we're going to point it out to you. We're going to complain about this. We're going to bird dog you at every opportunity if you're not going to respond to our concerns. And that is what I did in response to Evan Glass's post. Please acknowledge, let me see if I can get this up for you, because I thought it was somewhat instructive. And I wanted to get to, by the way, I promise you we'll get to Mamdani. It's all consistent. But since I started out talking about Israel, the genocide, I wanted to really get on this topic. Also, I want to stay with the topic and focus on the council member here running for county executive. Also, we'll talk briefly about, I guess it's a slight correction or a change in tone from the remarks I made yesterday about the video of boos and some cheers apparently greeting President Trump at the United States Tennis Association Sunday. So my response to Glass is, you want my support? Please acknowledge the Jewish state's ongoing genocide of Palestinians and the moral imperative to do everything in your power to stop it. And you see 6 people, thumbs up, no thumbs down, no criticism or anything like that. But I would note there were some other posts that were similar that got even more praise, more positive feedback, responses. So here's somebody who wrote back, Hal Ginsberg, I agree with you in your sentiment, but could you please refrain from calling it the Jewish state? I am a Jew and Jewish law prohibits what Israel has done and continues to do in my name. Israel is not a Jewish anything. It does not represent Judaism. Israel is a Zionist state. Zionism is racism, not Judaism. And then that gets 4 likes or 3 likes and a heart or 2 likes and 2 hearts or something like that. And I really take that seriously. I really do. I've really thought a lot about, well, I haven't probably thought about it as much as I should. Should I call it the Jewish state? Israel calls itself the Jewish state. Israel consistently wraps itself in the mantle of Judaism. And we'll get to that in just a moment, my response. I hear you, but Israel does call itself the Jewish state. Well, I just said, and by equating itself with Judaism, generates a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism. That's what I will reconsider. So I didn't say I would stop, but I will reconsider. And that's what I'm doing here. So again, if you want to join me, would love to get your thoughts. What do you think? Should we not use the term? Is the term Jewish state and improper at this point? Because it implies for sure, even though Israel calls itself the Jewish state, it implies for sure that there's something that Judaism countenances what Israel's doing. And I kind of have decided for now, I did reconsider it. I'm not going to stop saying Jewish state. And I'll tell you why. Because Israel justifies, and I've heard so many Jewish people say it. I mean, more than just one. I've heard this over and over. In fact, that's one of the defenses that Andrew Friedson, council member, made for Israel's continued existence and for his support of a, quote, 2-state solution, which I do not support. I support only a 1-state solution. I don't believe in Jewish states. I don't even necessarily believe in Palestinian states unless you call it Palestine, and everyone who lives in that state is Palestinian, just like everyone who lives in the United States or every citizen of the United States is an American. Sure, if you're Palestinian, then you're Jewish, you're Christian, you're Druze, you're Muslim, all who live there are Palestinian. Fine, I'm okay with that. And I'm fine with an Israeli state. You call it Israel. I mean, I think now the term has been, the name is so toxic, right? Like you couldn't call yourself the Nazi state because the term Nazi is so toxic, and for a good reason. I think at this point, Israel is a toxic name. So we have to come up with a different name. And I'm fine with Palestine. The defense of a Jewish state, and this is what its defenders say, well, we have to have a Jewish state. Jews will never be safe. I keep hearing this. Without a Jewish state, we're not safe. We could be pushed into the ovens. We could be, gassed. They'll line us up and shoot us in the pits. That's the argument. Only a Jewish state can save us. Well, I don't buy that. I don't buy that notion. I don't think that Israel makes Jews safer. I reject that. I think Israel now is making Jews less safe. But even if it were somehow true, that doesn't justify a country that maintains its Jewish identity, its Jewish statehood by systematically preventing people who live within what you would consider its traditional borders from living there, pushing people out, reducing them to secondhand citizenship, reducing their political power. That's not okay. So it is the Jewish state because the actions that Israel's taking right now are designed, in part, the oppressive actions, the persecution of Palestinians. that Israel continues is designed to maintain a Jewish majority in perpetuity. And so for that reason, I think it is fair to call it the Jewish state. Now, I'm certainly open to debate. There's no way I'm going to not be willing to hear what others have to say about this, and they may have a very different idea, but obviously many do, and I get it. And I also say this, I'm somewhat of a provocateur. I think that it's important sometimes to get people to really, really think about what they're saying, what they're doing. And, when you say you call it the Jewish state, I think people can't help but think, well, it is called the Jewish state. Is it a Jewish state? What's going on here? What are we doing here? What exactly are we doing here? I think that's very, very important. So for those reasons, I'm going to keep calling it the Jewish state. So there you go. By the way, I wanted to note that I know I've started the past couple of programs at 2 p.m. rather than at noon. And we do the Arlen program, and I was hoping it would be Tuesday with Arlen, but it's really been Monday with Arlen the past couple of weeks. Going forward, it's going to be Tuesday with Arlen. I've been hoping to start my other programs at noon, and I've been doing that consistently. But for some reason, I wouldn't say for some reason. There's a very good reason. The good reason is that I've had a family situation that I've had to address. And that situation has kept me from being able to come live today. But I think starting tomorrow, I should be all right. Should be able to go forward as of noon. So we'll stick with the noon time frame. Yeah, there's a problem here. Not sure what it is. I'm not getting the video to go out onto the Facebook channel. I can't quite figure that one out. We'll try to fix it for tomorrow, but that was what I was just working on. All right, let's get to the U.S. Tennis Open. Sunday, not yesterday. I played this clip yesterday. It's slightly different. What kind of got me to play this was when Art posted that he didn't think, this is in the Halitics on Facebook group. By the way, that's a good segue. Yeah, join Halitics on Facebook. Big fan, of course. Want more 24/7? Join us on Halitics, at Halitics on Facebook. This should be the live stream there. It isn't, as I mentioned, but we'll figure that out. You can also, of course, and I always want you to do this. This is the most important thing from my standpoint you can do, is get us those subscribers on YouTube. I want to get to 1,000. So click like, click subscribe, click the bell. And finally, I said click like. So here's your little like thumbs up to tell everyone that you like what we're doing here at Halitics. I played the U.S. Open response yesterday to Trump. And I made the point, because it seemed very, very negative, you heard a lot of boos, that Trump is in fact very unpopular. And it's only because Democrats are so awful themselves, so corrupt themselves, so, totally divorced from the reality of American life, that so insulated from a lot of the problems that they cause, that Trump was able to get elected in the first place. Art pointed out, well, it's not so clear that they were booing Trump. It's not so clear that everyone hates Trump the way you suggested the video shows. So this is from Sonia Twigg. She is actually from The Telegraph. She also reports for Sky News. Those are both conservative. The Daily Telegraph in London, conservative, pro-Trump. Sky News, pro-Trump. She writes, Donald Trump has not enjoyed an especially positive reaction from fans of the U.S. Open men's final. I'm going to play the video. Art has a point. Even from somebody who's a conservative who's saying the crowd reaction hasn't been that positive, it's clear that the reaction is mixed. He wasn't only booed. He wasn't only jeered. So you're not really hearing either applause, jeers, nothing. Let's keep going. Yeah, so I mean, it's really hard to tell. I can't, there was booing, but if you listened or watched the video that I shared yesterday, it seems like the boos are all coming from right around the videographer. So yeah, there was a sense that he was being jeered, but you can't extrapolate that this was some kind of universal sentiment. One thing that we can tell about the sentiment of the people of New York is, at least by a significant plurality, when it comes to the mayor's race, they prefer Zohran Mamdani. So this is the latest poll. This shows Zohran Mamdani with a 22 percentage point lead over Andrew Cuomo, number 2, at 24%. That's pretty darn impressive. And I was glad to see 46%. Now I want to see over 50, because the concern is that if all of the opponents of Mamdani all unite, and all of their supporters agree, then they could beat Mamdani. And it sort of feels like that's what's going on here. In other words, just under 50% of the New York City likely voters, just under 50%, support Mamdani. But the other voters, all of them have the attitude of anyone but Mamdani. And if they all voted together, then Mamdani could lose. That is, seems to be a very, I wouldn't say likely possibility, but a possibility nevertheless. And here's what the New York Times has to say about this. This is a poll that just came out, and it's very worrisome to me. We're going to not just examine the numbers, but do we really, is it that important, right? I mean, I'm a harsh critic of the Democratic Party. And I've made the point that the Democratic Party is much more likely to corrupt you than that you are to uncorrupt it. And certainly AOC is a great example of that. But we've seen this over and over. Every Democrat, they all voted for, Hakeem Jeffries, who's horrible. He's an awful, corrupt individual. And they all voted for him to be their leader. So obviously, there's something very, very rotten in the state of the Democratic Party across the board, at least on the federal level. So you could make the argument, and some have, it doesn't even matter. I think it matters. I think Mamdani is a good choice. I hope that people in New York, if anyone in New York City is watching this video or sees it, that you vote for Mamdani. But we're going to examine the argument that maybe the real answer is not Mamdani at all, but outside the Democratic Party altogether, which may be the case. In a hypothetical head-to-head matchup, voters who initially supported Adams and Sliwa broke heavily toward Cuomo. The survey suggests that will lead to an extremely tight race, with 48% supporting Mamdani and 44% supporting Cuomo. So remember, 46 to 24 when you have 4 people in the race, 46 for Mamdani, 24 for Cuomo. If you take out Sliwa and Adams, of those voters, only 2% of the entire electorate of the candidate voters who were just pulled out, Sliwa and Adams, only 2% support Mamdani, and then you add 20% to Cuomo's total, and you get to that very close 48%, 44%. Even still, he's really close to 50. So I look at those numbers and they make me a little nervous, but I still think, I'd still rather be Mamdani. And I would, of course, but man, it is tight. If the Democratic elites, the Democratic establishment, the billionaire class, the Republican elites, who are all supporting the sleazy, corrupt, sexual harasser, Andrew Cuomo, they all support him. If they get their way, he has a real chance. Look at this. In fact, Cuomo running as an independent leads Mamdani among all registered voters. Race isn't over yet. This is a big reason, a big argument to get out there and really try to get out the vote, I think, for Mamdani. He's so much better. Interestingly, the Times, the New York Times, which undoubtedly supports Cuomo, gives you some of the reasons why Mamdani not only is ahead, but should win. And I thought this was a very important, and we're going to get into why it's important in a moment, but the areas, the issues where Mamdani has a big lead. And one of them, I think many might be surprised to see, is Gaza, is Palestine. By a large margin, likely voters said Mamdani was the candidate who best addressed the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. So Mamdani's the most pro-Palestine by far. The others are all super Zionazis. Both Adams, well, I think Adams has said this, but Cuomo absolutely said the first country he would visit is Israel. We need to support Israel. He has offered to defend Netanyahu against charges of genocide. Mamdani, by contrast, has been among the most outspoken proponents of Palestinian rights, and he has called Israel's actions genocidal. It's a big deal. This is the most Jewish city in the world after, I guess, Tel Aviv, right? More Jews in New York City than anywhere. I would think there are more than, maybe not, than maybe Tel Aviv has more. I guess that's what's being said now. I don't know. In a Jewish city, or, you know, it is a Jewish city. New York, it's an Italian city, it's an Irish city, it's a black city, it's a Puerto Rican city, it's all those things. In a Jewish city, Mamdani's pro-Palestine, anti-Zion-Nazi position is much more popular than Cuomo's. And even if you took all of the folks who feel that Eric Adams or Curtis Lee will have better positions on Israel, and you add them to Cuomo, he's still behind. Let's see if we can show you that slide, because the Times very obligingly does that. They break it down. So here is, I'm going to blow it up for you too, so you can see this a little bit better. Let me put this there. So there's the smaller slide, but we'll make it much bigger so you can really see it. So look at that. Top right of your screen. Israeli-Palestinian conflict. 43% prefer Mamdani, 16% Cuomo, 8% Sliwa, 11% Adams, and don't know 21%. If you add Sliwa and Adams, 1935, Mamdani still has a significant advantage over Cuomo on that one incredibly important issue. Some of the other issues, if you add Sliwa and Adams to Cuomo's numbers, you don't see that advantage. Housing is basically housing is advantage Cuomo, actually. And same with taxes and spending, most unfortunately, I believe. So Israel-Palestine is a big advantage. Mamdani, it seems like he shouldn't, under that, based on those numbers, he should not modify his position at all. He should maintain his pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, or at least anti-Netanyahu, anti-genocide positions. Now, let's go to some of the other. The other issue where he clearly has the advantage, affordability. Even if you add Sliwa and Adams' numbers to Cuomo, Mamdani's still ahead. The others, not so much. So I would stress, if I were Mamdani, my hard work to make Manhattan and to make the boroughs, the outer boroughs, if you want to call them that, more affordable. And I would also stress my opposition to what Israel's doing. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that from Mamdani. We're seeing him try to shade to the center a little bit on the Israel-Gaza situation. And so I asked, should we be worried? He's getting an awful lot of heat. Now, I had two two podcasters who have pretty good sized audiences, Blakely and Revolutionary Blackout Network, have absolutely slammed Zohran for this video. I'm going to play it for you. Not all of it. I didn't play them. I'm not playing them, and I'll tell you why not. I would have played at least one of them, if not both. But every other word's a curse, man. Every other word's an F or an S bomb from both of them. And I just didn't feel like putting that out there. So here we go. Here's Reverend Al Sharpton on MSNBC interviewing Zohran Mamdani.
Own positions to build unity. Has your personal views on the phrase of global intifada changed since you've been running for mayor? Do you understand those that see it in a more threatening way than saying, I'm just not going to police other people's language?
Yes, they have. And you know, when we won the primary election, I said on that stage that I know that millions of New Yorkers care deeply about what happens in Israel and Palestine, and I'm one of those New Yorkers. And I commit to reaching even further to understand disagreement, to wrestle with the complexities of those differing viewpoints, because what this city deserves is a mayor that looks not only to represent the close to 600,000 New Yorkers that voted for me, but rather the 8.5 million people that call this city home. And
so I want to stop it there for a second. And I'll play a little more in a minute. But, you know, I don't love that answer, because I think the phrase globalize the intifada is a good phrase. And I think it's appropriate. And I think it's one we should use. I think we should together unite. Only by uniting the people can we defeat genocide. Can we defeat empire? Only through a globalized movement of the disenfranchised, the disaffected, the poor, the struggling, the workers. Only by globalizing that struggle can we do that. And I think that's the point he should be making. I think he should say that up front. He should say, this is it. What this means is that we live in an unjust, unfair world where a small number of people exercise tremendous amount of power. They exercise dominion over billions of people. And when it comes to Gaza, that exercise has turned into genocide. So we have to look at what we're talking about here. We're talking about making the world a little bit fairer, a little bit juster. We're talking about wresting power and wealth from a tiny group of people. That's what globalize the intifada means. So I understand there are people who have problems with that expression. But people have problems with lots of expressions. I think what we need to do is understand their concerns. And we have to try to alleviate them to the extent possible. Now, if their concerns are, well, I'm rich, I'm powerful, I don't want to lose that wealth and power. Well, okay, we get it, but it's not right that you should have so much more than others. I think that's how we could have started this. One of the ways that the Democrats, and always, and especially Kamala Harris and all of her supporters, every time, but not just Kamala, all of them, Bernie, AOC, whenever they're asked about Israel's actions, well, let's start at the beginning. Israel was attacked. Horrible crimes were committed, atrocities by Hamas. So maybe Israel's gone a little too far, but we have to look at the big picture. That's the way the Democratic elites would always justify or try to distract from Israel's crimes, Israel's genocidal actions. And I think Mamdani could have responded to the globalize the intifada statement by saying, well, look, Al, this is what we have to, let's start with the big picture. The big picture is right now, Israel is committing terrible atrocities against the people of Palestine in Gaza. They are actually committing a genocide. They're committing ethnic cleansing. And what we're saying is that we have to stop it. We have to stop that persecution. We have to stop that crime. That's what it means. Together we can stop it. That's what it means. We have to start, that's what he could have said. And I think that would have been a very popular answer. I think that would have been a very well received answer. I think him saying, well, I represent everyone. Yeah, you do. And you have to address their legitimate concerns and make sure they all have enough and none have too much. But that doesn't mean you cater to prejudices, to bigotry, to the desire to lord it over others. And I think that's what his answer suggests. Well, these people don't like being, they feel uncomfortable when they're called out as the oppressor class, the people who are causing harm, and we need to unite against them. They don't like that. Well, then stop oppressing people. Stop supporting oppression. Stop supporting genocide. Let's play a little more.
The meetings that I have had since that moment, I've met with Jewish elected officials, with rabbis, with community leaders, and there was one rabbi that spoke to me about how that phrase, for her, brought back memories of bus bombings in Haifa, of restaurant attacks in Jerusalem.
Well, but see, so the rabbi is saying this is bad because when I was in Israel, sometimes there were terrorist attacks in Haifa and Jerusalem where I was under, I could have been harmed. I could have been hurt. But again, you got to look at the picture. Yes, Israel was suffering from attacks by Palestinian terrorists and others. But they were the victims of your country. Your nation was the real oppressor, the persecutor. What's your solution? You weren't responding to the cries of your victims. You showed no, apparently, did you? And even if you did, and I'm sure, and yes, I think some truly righteous Israelis, of course, have been victims of terrorist attacks. But that's what happens if you're an oppressor nation. If you're part of the aristocracy that's cruel and overbearing, then you may well be a victim, even if you yourself have been fighting that aristocracy. That's something we know from human history, is sometimes the innocent are the victims. Only the good die young. So if I don't believe that, but what you have to do in those cases is you have to fight to stop the oppressor. So I would say to that rabbi, yes, join the Intifada. Yes, do you not understand that the attacks in Haifa and Jerusalem were the understandable response of Israel's victims? I think that's what you have to say. I'm going to play a little more.
From what she was sharing with me, that she had a fear, as she said, that could come home to New York City. And so in having that conversation with her, I knew that the gap between the intent that I have heard some New Yorkers share with the use of that language of calling for the end of the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land was disconnected from the impact it was having in that same conversation I was having with that rabbi.
So I don't understand that point. The call, I don't understand that point. The reason the terrorist attacks that scared that rabbi occurred in the first place was because of the Israeli occupation. So I don't get his point or her point. Yeah, you were scared. Of course you were scared. Your city was bombed. But it was bombed because you're the oppressor. You're the part of the oppressor class. You don't get that people are saying we have to unite against that? It's very odd to me. Now, I again, don't like his answer. I don't think it's a great answer. I get why he did it. He wants to win. He doesn't want to offend anyone. He sees himself as having a lead. He doesn't want to, take any big chances. I get that. And maybe he's doing the right thing. Maybe this is correct. I wouldn't vote against him. Now, RBN has for some time called him a sellout. Blakely said she's given him a lot of grace, but she's coming to the end of her tether. I understand that. You know, I will say this, or I will let former First Lady Michelle Obama tell you for me what I think we shouldn't do in this particular case.
Don't let great be the enemy of the good. And
so she's telling Oprah. Now, I always hated when Obama would use that expression. I thought it was extremely condescending. And we would, you know, say, well, Hillary shouldn't have fomented the overthrow by the CIA of a legitimately elected democratic socialist in Honduras and replaced him with a military tyrant. That was wrong. Hillary shouldn't have stymied a minimum wage hike in Haiti for garment workers from 29 cents an hour to 60 cents an hour. That was wrong. And Obama would say things like, well, you shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good because, well, you're saying, well, she would be, you want her to be perfect. You want her not to stop minimum wage hikes and you want her not to overthrow democratic socialists. And I'm like, that's not being perfect. That's just being good. I'm letting the good be the enemy of the bad. Hillary's bad. I want good. If you're not good, then I will not vote for you. So yes, I'm letting the good be the enemy of the bad. I think on balance, from what I've heard, from what I've seen, by a decent margin, Mamdani's good. There's a real huge gulf between him and any of the Republicans, but especially Cuomo. And he is, I think, prepared to do and will try to do and likely will do some good things for the city of New York. I am hopeful that under his stewardship, if he's elected, and I think he likely, although not definitely, will be, the city will become a better place. So notwithstanding my concerns about the inadequacy of his response to Al Sharpton, I'm not prepared, and I won't at this point throw him under the bus. I would love to hear what you think. 240-242-5646, 240-242-5646. I think it's also really important for leftists to understand that although our ideas are popular, although people agree with us, the media and the elites don't. And they have an inordinate amount of influence over everybody else. So even though policies like Medicare for All, globalize the intifada, those are popular. Raising the minimum wage, popular. Those are popular positions. Peace is popular. Those are popular positions. Because the elite, the billionaires, have so much control over our media, they can manipulate us in all sorts of ways which we may not even know about, we may not be aware of, to do something that they want. So I understand Mamdani's reluctance to be too aggressively pro-Palestine because he doesn't want to, for example, alienate someone like Al Sharpton to, give Al Sharpton a cudgel he can use to beat him over the head. I understand that. I really do. On the other hand, the elites are always going to go after you if you threaten them. If they perceive you as a threat, they're going to go after you no matter what you say, no matter how much you try to smooth them down, placate them. They're still going to go after you. So it's a very tough balancing test. And left media, progressive media, isn't really progressive. I'm going to play this. This is Olivia Giuliana. She's I guess more on TikTok. She's defending taking that chorus money. Remember all that chorus money? And I think it's instructive. And it goes to this whole issue of what about Mamdani?
I accepted money to be part of a technical and operational training program and a mentorship program. I have absolutely no shame about being part of Chorus. I am someone who has been on my own, working and busting my ass since I was 19 years old to be able to build a better life for my children and give them the safety and security I never had. And next year, when I go back to college...
So I'm going to stop it there. So she's really, really angry that Taylor Lorenz exposed that grift going on, where the chorus group raised a lot of dark money from presumably, we don't know, sort of centrist Democratic groups, probably some Zionist groups, to prevent left, perhaps potential influencers on the left, from taking positions that they don't like. So it was a capture mission, and also to amplify voices that they're comfortable with. And Olivia Giuliana is really, really mad about this. She's saying, "Hey, I worked really hard on my channel, and I come from, I presumably what she says, I want to build a better life for my child. I come from a working class background. I've never graduated from, be the first one in my family, I think, to graduate from college." She's going to say that. So you can see the system makes everyone corrupt. Everyone is on the take. If they have something they can give the elites see them as useful, they're going to do everything they can to entice them. And people who have very little, I mean, can you really be, I don't love her manner. I wish she were more, she would be willing to acknowledge that there's something just deeply wrong about groups unknown groups funding influencers, funding media personalities, because you are media, funding them, but no one knowing about it. You're not telling us you're getting that money. That's if you were on radio, that'd be a direct violation of the FCC. FCC says if you get money for your broadcast, you have to disclose who's giving you the money. Now, a lot of times we all know because you're watching TV and you see an ad for Miller Lite. Well, it's Miller Lite. It's giving you the money, right? Or you see like a public service announcement. They'll tell you who's funding that public service announcement. That's how the FCC regulates TV and radio. But they don't have any oversight over the internet. And the FEC, Federal Election Commission, is extremely weak, toothless, doesn't do anything. The Supreme Court has gone bent over backwards to allow dark money to proliferate. So Olivia Giuliana is in a position where she doesn't make a lot of money. Probably I don't know how much her TikTok generates, but whatever it is, it's presumably not that much. And she has a decent sized audience, and she's getting some decent amount of money from this group Chorus. And she's really, really salty at Taylor Lorenz for potentially screwing up that gravy train. I get it. I understand. But she should understand that the gravy train is only going to those who have messages, who provide messages that are congenial, by and large, to the billionaire class. Maybe there are a few exceptions, and billionaires don't always have exactly the same interests, but by and large, those who are getting that money are providing messages that are congenial to the billionaire class. And Zohran Mamdani's message is not particularly congenial to the billionaire class. So the media, even the so-called left media, as represented by someone like Olivia Giuliana, cannot be viewed as an ally by a Zohran Mamdani. And that makes him, gives him a little trepidation when it comes to taking truly progressive, truly left positions.
And I'm able to finish and become the first person in my family to graduate from college, I will have absolutely no guilt in accepting money to make myself more independent in the future. And the fact that you have the audacity to go after creators and say that they are corrupt and that they are twisted for taking money that could help them build a platform that could sustain them and their families for the rest of their life is disgusting. And you should.
All right, so you can see the self-righteousness there, and she says a lot of things that Taylor Lorenz didn't say. I don't think she used the word corrupt to describe the creators who are getting the money. I don't think she ever said it was corrupt. The system is corrupt, but we can understand how it proliferates in a time and place, the United States, 2025, of profound inequality, where people are desperate to survive. Where Olivia Giuliana's life, if her podcasting career doesn't hit big, could really suck, right? It could just be a really lousy. Might have to go work as a server in a restaurant, making very poor money, barely getting by. That's the reality for tens of millions of Americans. And so they will amplify messages that the billionaire class wants if they have the ability to do that and they can get paid to do it. They'll do it. They won't even think they're doing anything wrong. They may believe those messages. It certainly it serves them to believe it. So I get why Mamdani is leery of being too outspoken in support of the Palestinian cause. I understand it, but it's still unfortunate. And I kind of, I'm so critical on this program of the people I view as the sellouts, and but more so than them, what I really can't stand are the elites who use their wealth and power to maintain it, to aggregate even more, who have already far more than they should. That is even more problematic for me. I mean, I see the posts and stuff and comments from people who are, well, you're a communist, and you this and that bull crap like that. But, a lot of working people do buy into the capitalist ethos, and they just really think, hey, I could just get lucky too, or if I work hard enough, I work really hard, I'll deserve everything I get. The government should take my money. So they believe it. But the bottom line is the system now is profoundly unjust, profoundly unfair. It punishes people for being poor. It punishes people for coming from the wrong family. It rewards people for doing harm to others. And I get it. If you're Olivia Giuliani, you just want a decent life for yourself and your family. I understand that. I understand why you're so mad at Taylor Lorenz. But the real enemy ultimately is the people who are paying you. They may not be your enemy in this moment, but they're the ones who created such an unfair system. A system that rewards you for ultimately stabbing your own, people in the back. So, I mean, we can only go so far with this. But it's understandable why people do think the wrong thing or even take positions that they don't fully believe, because they know that if they're truly honest, they're going to get it. No one wants to be attacked. Also, you want to get along with people. If everyone you're around is pro-Israel and everyone you're in some echo chamber and everyone's telling you how great Israel is, it's so hard to say no, to stand up. It's so tough. And then people are getting paid to say Israel's great. And if you criticize them and criticize them for taking that money, they'll go after you. The answer has to be, we vote for the right people. We vote for the best people. I think Mamdani is better than most, but maybe he's not as good as we'd like. Now, you saw those numbers, right? You saw that Mamdani could lose if it's just him and Cuomo. And it's important to realize that that's exactly what obviously Donald Trump wants. So if you're a Trump hater, as so many Democrats profess to be, if they claim to be, why aren't they? They should support Mamdani. If your identity is Trump is the worst thing that ever lived, why would you ever not support Mamdani? Trump supports Cuomo. If you vote against Trump, then I don't know how you could not be on the team Mamdani. Right here, Trump aides are discussing jobs for Eric Adams to try to clear the NYC mayoral field against Mamdani. They saw that poll. They know what's going on. They know that if it's just Cuomo versus Mamdani, Cuomo has a real shot. I'm hoping that this redounds to the benefit of Mamdani in the end, that people recognize, hey, Trump's bad. If he really hates Mamdani and he supports Cuomo, that must mean Mamdani's better than Cuomo. I hope people get that. But, that's a little bit, requires a little bit of, thought, I'd say. And many of us just react emotionally. But according to, here we go, this is, I guess, CNN, add this to the list of Trump's accomplishments, helping elect a socialist mayor. And they want Andrew Cuomo. So they're going to try to bribe Eric Adams. So far, Eric Adams has said no. The important date to keep in mind is Thursday. Today is Tuesday. Thursday, the 11th, is the date when the New York City ballot is finalized. So if Adams doesn't drop out tomorrow, or maybe Thursday, then he's going to be on the ballot. And that's a huge blow to Trump, to Trump and to Cuomo. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if we hear an announcement today or tomorrow. If I were Adams, look, Adams has proven what a sleazeball he is, how corrupt he is. I'm really surprised he hasn't already taken that ambassadorship to Saudi Arabia that was offered him. Now, maybe Trump's trying to up the ante. I don't really know. Maybe Trump's decided it's not worth it. Maybe he hasn't even dangled that offer that we've heard about. Another group. So Trump wants to get Adams out of the race. He's trying to bribe him to go out. What we see over and over is that different individuals, different groups of people are often susceptible, right, to the blandishments of big money, to the blandishments of those with more power. And another area where we see that is union leadership. So union leaders will often, we've seen it's very sad, will sell out their rank and file. And I certainly saw this at our revolution where union leaders, former union leaders would support centrist Dems, corporate Dems, because they were the people they hung around with. They were the people they saw every day. They were the people they spent time with without, really factoring in that what workers in this country need really is a true revolution. And the centrist Dems that they support, the Tom Perez's, the Hillary Clintons, not necessarily Hillary Clinton, because a lot of union leaders didn't support it, a lot did. They're never going to bring about the working class revolution that we need. So Cuomo is reaching out to union leaders as well, to union members. And Cuomo is losing support from unions. Apparently, we know this. Some union workers support Trump. And at a rally by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, despite the workers there at an event ostensibly to show support for Cuomo, some of those workers were actually holding signs for Mamdani. And when a Cuomo volunteer went up to them and tried to hand them some literature, one of the workers, the electrical workers, said, no, we support Mamdani. And this enraged Chris Erickson, the business manager for the local union. So one of the leaders. The union had officially backed Cuomo. The fact that the rank and file didn't, or at least some members of it, was enraging to this more privileged business manager of the group. And he apparently started cursing them out. I don't include this, but he was cursing them out. Said, don't fall for the socialist S. But this reminded me of most forcibly the schism, the split between the leadership of the union who support the elitist, the corporatist, the billionaire-backed candidate. And we know, obviously, Cuomo is billionaire-backed because Trump backs him, and Trump's a billionaire. We've seen that the real estate moguls in New York are all now coming together. They're coalescing to try to formulate a strategy that will destroy Mamdani. So we've seen this. The leadership of unions is often on the side of the billionaires, the bosses. The rank and file, not so much. The leadership has a lot more influence. One union leader has far more influence. One union boss has far more influence than one union rank and file member. That said, obviously the rank and file together collectively can influence elections to the left. But it's tough. They got to stand up to their bosses. They got to stand up to their employer. The employers and the bosses are often on the same page. So International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers are working in an apartment building. The owner of the building wants Cuomo. Their own union bosses want Cuomo. They may know in their heart that Cuomo's a bad choice. But they may say, but what Mamdani's calling for, say rent freeze, that's good for me because I live in a rental and I can barely afford it. So they may know that's the best thing for them. They may say, hey, I don't know why all this money, our billions of dollars of tax money is going to help Israel kill Palestinians. I need that money here. I want better schools in the United States. They might say that, but their bosses are saying, no, vote for Cuomo. They're the employer at the building where they work is telling them, we support Trump like you, because some of those workers do support Trump for a variety, for social reasons, cultural reasons, because Trump is arguably better on trade, I guess, although we've talked about how reckless he is with his policies and trade and how he's not consistent, but still he's not a free trader, which is important. So it's tough. They have a lot of influence, and you can see Mamdani's not going to want to poke that bear if he doesn't have to. But I was thinking about seeing those union bosses fighting their rank and file, fighting for the union bosses, fighting for Cuomo on the same side as Trump. This really, really did remind me forcibly of this story. And I may have mentioned this in a recent program, I'm not sure, how the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, because it served the interests of their president, endorsed Hillary Clinton, even though it appears the majority of teachers preferred Bernie. Randy Weingarten, sitting on the board of the pro-Clinton PAC, Priorities USA Action, ramrodded through the endorsement of Hillary back in 2016. And a lot of teachers were like, this is ridiculous. Hillary is not our friend. She is not our ally. She's not a friend of public education. We need Bernie. Bernie's for Medicare for all. We support that. Bernie's for better jobs for American workers. We support that. That's better for our kids. And it didn't matter. Randy Weingarten said, it doesn't matter. We're supporting Hillary. So it's the exact same dynamic. The union boss is all in for the corporate dem. The rank and file, not so much. This is, again, an environment where it's very, very difficult to stand up and fight for working people. Yeah, I mean, again and again. This is exactly, the dynamic. And the only way, ultimately, to break this cycle is we've got to massive wealth and income redistribution. Because as long as so much money is in so few hands, the people who have it are going to use it to maintain their grip. All right, that's going to do it for me. I will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, Wednesday Halitics. I have a lot more I wanted to talk about, and I'll get to it tomorrow. A piece by Anand Giridharadas, I think. We'll talk about that. A tennis player's lessons for Democrats and much, much more tomorrow on Halitics. Thanks so much for being part of Halitics, and I will see you tomorrow.